HomeFix is made possible on public television by True Value Hardware, with tools, paint, electrical, plumbing, and hardware to quickly complete your project start to finish. At your local True Value Hardware, help is just around the corner.
Boy, this is messed up.
I think you're wasting your time trying to fix this one.
You think so, huh?
It's been through a beating and it didn't survive.
Okay, fine.
I'm Joe Prin.
I'm Stan Mackey.
On today's episode of HomeFix, we're going to show you how to construct your very own wood screen door. Simple tools, and also it's a little bit more complicated tools. You get to pick which way you want to do it. We're going to head to the workshop and get started.
The garage.
Yeah.
Here. Ooh, that's nice.
We got a hold of some pine that it's fairly old. It's been in storage for quite a while.
It has been.
It's nice and dry. It's clear vertical grain pine. It's 5/4 of an inch thick, which is 1 1/4 inches. They call it 5/4 because it is 5/4 of an inch thick. You can also get this in 6/4, 8/4, and of course 3/4. We're starting off with 5/4 material, but we're going to actually have to cut this down, rip it to our proper width that we're going to create our door out of, and then we're also going to run it through a surface planer to get it to the right thickness that we want to end up with, which is exactly 1 inch thick.
So we need to take an 1/8 inch side.
That's right. So this is part of the show that we want to explain for today. We're going to be using some tools that the average workshop may not have. We're going to be using surface planers, we're going to be using some table saws, we're also going to be using some powered miter saws and a few other tools. But a lot of this could be accomplished without these tools, and we're going to show you that also. If you don't have some of those tools, some of this stock like this, some of this 1 inch thick pine and cut down to 3 inches wide, that's available from hardwood and lumber suppliers in this form. You'll just have to go buy it that way. We're doing it this way because we just happen to have this material and been looking for a good use for it. And a screen door is a perfect use for some old, dried, seasoned, warp-free, twist-free, cut-free pine. So our first step is we got to start cutting down some lumber. We test fitted some like this, determine that those are the sizes that we want to use. We're going to start by ripping it down and planing it down to the thicknesses that we need. Let's go over a couple table saw safety items before we start making our cuts. This is probably the first and most important one. On these portable table saws, they've got blade guards on them.
Yeah. And
most table saws do, of course, and a lot of times these get taken off and discarded and they never get put back. You should always have these on anytime you're doing any type of a rip style cut, which is where you're taking the board through here like this.
Yep.
Now, if you also notice here on the back of the guard, there are these little anti-kickback knives, and as the wood goes through that, this lifts up and comes down on top of the wood, so that when it try to get it won't pull backwards.
Yeah, it
won't kick back on you and get it in your stomach there. So to get the wood out, you have to completely go through those. Alright, with these boards cut to the width now, what we're going to do is let's run it through the planer, plane it down to the proper height that we want. That'll also give us a smooth finish on here, as well as the proper thickness, because we need to take it down to about like there.
Right.
So we'll start by planing it down in height first, then we'll do the flat surfaces.
Okay.
This is a surface planer. This is a fairly uncommon but a really, really handy tool to have in your woodworking shop. Handles wood material up to about 12 inches wide as well as up to 6 inches high. Inside the planer, the true heart of the planer, are the blades down in here. And you got to be very careful down in here. These blades are extremely sharp. But as you can see, they're like a chisel, except these are a little over 12 inches wide and rotate at an extremely high rate of speed. Now anytime you have your hands in the planer like I just did to show you those blades, please make sure that the tool is unplugged from the power source. Please, because these blades spin at 10,000 RPM and they'll take your fingers off just as fast as they take the stock down to the thickness that you want.
now reached our finished product here. For those of you who don't have the planer and the saws and everything you need to make this, you can go to any good lumber supply, hardwood supply store, and they have the equipment where they can manufacture and plane down and prepare lumber to your exact specifications. We now have this ready. If you're using prepared lumber, this is where you want to start. So they could have fast forwarded through everything else that came before this. Yeah.
The material needed for the storm door, you're going to end up needing, for most size storm doors, you're going to need 2 pieces, at least 7 foot long when you go to buy your material. And then for the cross pieces that we're about to show when we get to that point, in our door we're going to need 5 3-footers. Now that's going to depend on the size of your storm door, and of course you always want to get a little more material than what you need so you can cut things with nice square edges and that. So 5 3-footers, 2 7s. We're going to be able to get all of that plus a little extra out of this material right here.
You're doing that again. 7 foot. 7 feet.
7.
7 is plural. Here, give me that piece here. First thing we're going to do is we want to square off the ends here. One way we can do this is by using the miter saw to cut it. If you don't have a miter saw, you can also take your triangle, draw the line, use your miter box, which you can get just about anywhere. We call these cross-cut saws.
They are back saws.
I'm not going to change. It's too late in my life.
Back saw.
You can also use your hand circular saw to do this. Right. Me being, however, the lazy type and having a chop saw, I'm going to use it. Other end.
It's very important to square up all the ends, because just because the board comes from the factory, or like you see on this one,
it's got a bad dip in it.
Yeah, when we ran that one through the planer, we had it not flat on the table when it started. It causes that chatter across there, so that has to go.
Next.
So there's our 2 side pieces. And technically, this part of the screen door, these are called stiles. The part on a door that goes up and down is the stile.
The stile.
The part that comes across is called the rail.
The rail.
And it's easy to remember rail because rails go horizontally like the rails on a fence. Mm-hmm. The rails go horizontally, the stiles are vertical. Yeah. So our two stiles are cut.
Yeah. Now we gotta do the rails.
Now for the rails and all of the pieces on our wood screen door, you want to measure the opening that your door has to go into to determine the length of this. This is going to be the exact finished height that we want to have. So that's what we cut our stiles to. The rails on our screen door need to be 31.5 inches wide. So now we're going to need 5 of those, and that's the full width. And you'll see why with the type of a joint that we're going to make when we hook the rails to the stiles. If you don't have a pair of sawhorses to do this part, you can just use a table or any other type of flat work surface. Now we got to determine which is the top and the bottom of the door, so I'm going to just start here and say this is the bottom.
Why not this end?
Because that's the top.
Here, give me that one.
Okay. Now we're going to do some fancy little things on our wood storm door here. I can't let all the secrets out or you won't stick around until the end of the show, but you'll see why we're doing this.
Okay.
Now what I'd like to do here, Stan, is start with this on the corners.
All right, let me get that.
Let's see. Now what we got to do is make sure that everything we do is perfectly square and lined up flush on the edges. Okay, you got that tight?
Yes.
All right, let's mark that one.
Okay.
Okay, now we're only going to mark one side of this thing. Now this next rail, I want at 18 inches off of this mark.
Why?
Because when I planned this thing out, that's what I thought would look nice. So this is where just your own creativeness kind of comes into play.
All right.
Okay, you got it?
Got it.
So we're marking the outside of our wood here, which means when we make our cuts, we want to leave the lines in place.
Okay.
All right, now before I transfer these, let me explain why I've got these where we do. With this in place right here, to make it more like the Victorian style, we've decided that we're going to put some detail onto our storm door. Screen door. I keep saying storm door.
Yeah, storm door, screen door, same thing.
This is a pre-manufactured decorative wood section. And they're designed for what we're doing here. And these come in different lengths, different sizes and that. This is made out of a hardwood material with turned spindles already put together. Now, of course, if we were really feeling like Norm, we'd make these ourselves.
Yeah.
I go to the store and buy them. This is going to go right in here, cut to fit inside of that. And these little brackets that go in the corners, they come in a 2-pack, 2 per package. These are going to go in the 4 corners of our door up here. And that can be pretty.
That's
okay,
so
1, 2, 3.
artistic.
Ooh, ah. So these marks here now that we have on our board, we need to transfer those to the other side. And the easiest way to do that is just bring the 2 pieces of material together. Okay, you lined up on your end there?
Yep.
All right. And then just bring the line straight across to the other side. Right, straight across. Now I found a little trick here by accidentally cutting something the wrong way the last time. Mark the sections that you're going to want to cut out so that there's no question when you get it over to the saw. The method that we're going to use to attach the rails to the stiles are going to be a simple overlapping joint like this.
Yes.
Very easy to do. There's a lot of other fancier cabinetry ways to do this. Things called mortise and tenon. There's going to be dowels. All kinds of different ways to do this. But we're going to do the simpler way because we can handle that.
Yeah,
we don't have that fancy workshop that Norm has. So
yeah, that's true.
So we're going to show it this way. Whenever you make these type of cuts, you want to make as many of them all at the same time as you possibly can so that you don't have to set your tools up into different positions and go back and forth all the time. So we spent a little bit of time practicing with these pieces to get that joint just exactly how we want it, and our saw is now set up for that. We've set the blade to exactly half the depth of the wood stock that we have here. And as you can see, that's where that's going to go. It's going to pass right through there. So that's our depth, and also the length that we want to go back into our wood here has been determined, and we've set the rip fence on the saw right to there. Now, to make this kind of a cut, though, you have to be extremely careful when using your table saw because the guard that's on here has to go away. There's no way to get the stock through there because it'll hit, and this is the only way to make this cut with a table saw. There are several other ways. Stan mentioned earlier the back saw and the hard rock maple miter box that you can do it that way too. This could be set in there. You could do that with a hand saw, make several cuts and then chip it away. We're going to do basically the same thing but using the table saw just for speed and because we have one. With our depth set to the right place, our length of cut set to the right place, we can now make the first cut. And then just watch along and I'll show you the rest of this process here to get that overlapping joint. Now show them how you make this beautiful.
Okay, I got to finish up this one first and get it off the table.
What we've done is made a series of cuts with the table saw across the board there. Now, of course, if you do have a dado blade set up for your table saw or even a radial arm saw, you can make these cuts like this. Also, a router could be used to achieve the same thing that we're going to be doing here. It just depends on the selection of tools that you have.
Well, once we have all the cuts made, then it's just a simple task to take. I like to use the claw of a hammer. You can use just about anything. Knock the tabs off like that. Start chiseling out the remainder. Now when you use a chisel like this, you want to keep it flat as you can and still dig into what you're trying to get off.
And you know, I think a little bit of this texture, you know, we don't want to get it down too much, but I think getting them down like this actually helps.
Hold the glue, yeah.
Right, because if it's too smooth, I think we're going to get a better bond with our adhesive.
Now, one of the first things my shop teacher in high school told me is more accidents happen with a chisel than any other tool in the world.
I'll be over here then.
Because they're sharp, and you're pushing on them all the time.
That's all of the rails.
All the rails.
All cleaned up and ready to go.
Yes.
So again, getting back to the point we made about setting up the table saw once and leaving it alone, all of the end cuts have been made. So we've done all of that. Every one of those is made. Now we've got to do the center cuts. So I'm going to take these boards, turn them up opposite of each other.
Yeah.
Again, line them up. Nice and even. How's that end look?
Fine.
All right. And transfer the lines to the side, the edge of the board, and transfer those lines across. And you only have to do this on the middle ones. And the purpose being is I'm going to be cutting these face down on the table saw, therefore I can't see the line, so I need to see it from the edge. So now this process here is just repeated. Get it set for the next one. We'll repeat this, go through and make several cross cuts in between. Stan will chip it out and clean that one up. Then we're ready to start gluing this door frame together.
Time now to start gluing the rails on. We've got this polyurethane glue that we're going to use. It's nice, good, all-weather glue that won't deteriorate, that won't be affected by the moisture, and it'll hold it together.
Really strong stuff. Takes about, oh, probably about 3 or 4 hours to fully cure to where we can work with it.
Yeah.
So we get some of that.
Okay.
I need a little brush. I always see them using little brushes.
Okay, get a little brush. I'll start putting it on over here.
Okay.
Now we're going to start working from the center out because it'll make it just a little bit easier to square the door up when we're finished.
Square these up. No, almost. Get this into square.
Alright.
Alright. Pulling the joint tight. Squeeze. Just squeeze your little heart out like that.
Okay, that's all it's going to squeeze.
Oh, that should be good. That's several thousand pounds of pressure on it. Alright, let's go down to this corner over here.
Alright.
We don't have to worry about the middle ones so much. It's just the corners I want to get as square as we can. Okay, I gotta open that one up a little bit to get it to square up. But that's okay, we're going to be painting this one. Alright, go ahead. Just squeeze the heck out of that. Now we've ran out of bar clamps, so we're going to use some squeeze clamps on the rest of them. You got those?
I've got them.
Getting a hand exercise out of that?
That's right.
Also going to use this old bar clamp that I have to put some side pressure on these and tighten it up this way a little bit. Do you know what it says on this thing? It's made in 1927.
Yeah.
Pretty neat. I like the old tools. So when they build them good, they hang around for a while.
That was in the last century.
Okay. Then we're just going to let this set for a while. The glue's going to take a while to harden up. It says about a 1 hour working time on the bottle. That means you can move things around. It'll stay loose for about an hour. And after clamping it, it says that it's basically set after 4. So we're going to try to let it sit for about that long. For these little wood strips now that are going to hold our panel in place, I'm using just an ordinary wood glue here because I don't want that foaming action to take place, but it is an outdoor rated wood glue, so it'll work fine for this exterior application. I'm just putting a little bead of glue down the back side of that strip right there. You want to use plenty because these are the kind of things you don't want to deteriorate in sunlight and the water beating down on it. So now that's going to go right onto the edge of our door. And if you'll notice here, we cut these just a little bit long. Just a little bit long, so when they go in here, they fit really tight in the corners. We're going to pull this up to where it's just flush with our wood, knowing that it's going to get sanded down a little bit anyway. Squeeze that into place. Now I'm shooting this on with an air-powered tool here, an air-powered finish nailer, sometimes called a pin nailer. But I'll tell you what, You can also do this without air tools. If you can just get some small brads, about 3/4 of an inch long, you can also do this by hand with just a tack hammer and a little box of brads, so you don't have to have the air tools. Just turn it right over. Now this right here is actually the front of our door. And you need to keep that in mind because there is a front and a back to them. And traditionally, the outside of the door, the part you want to see, should be this joint here on the stiles. And that has to do with moisture coming down. The outside of the door is probably subjected to a little more moisture than the inside, of course. And should there be any water flow, this joint is going to handle it better than the other one, which is running horizontal. So this is the front of our door. So our panel now is going to drop right in here. And we want it to fit a little bit loose. And we're also not gluing it into position. See, it's got a little bit of movement in there. That's what we want. Because a piece of 1/4 inch ply material like this, as opposed to the 1 inch thick pine material, these two are going to expand at a different rate. And you actually want the panel to be somewhat loose so that it can move and breathe, as opposed to the rest of the door, which is going to remain a little bit more rigid. What we do now then is come back and cut and fit more pieces of wood in here, and they're going to literally just pinch this panel right into place. So we'll just push it down nice and snug and nail these in. This is just going to fit right in here. Just a nice tight friction fit. I'm not going to glue this in, just on the chance that if this part ever gets damaged, since it's the crossbar, I'd be able to replace it.
Take it out. Well, that makes sense.
So what I want to do here now is center this. Because see, we're going to have screen behind this.
Right, yes. All
right? So if we know that this is the front of our door, then I want to push this to the back of the door.
Ah, okay.
So that the screen is fitting up nice and tight against that. That'll help, you know, keep getting bugs down behind it and all that.
Makes sense.
So I need to push that in to where it's just sitting flush with the back side of the door.
It needs to come down.
And if for any reason you have one of these brackets that's not quite a nice fit, just take it with your hand plane and you can just shave it down a little bit on the back side. It helps if you go with the direction of the grain. Just shave them down a little bit until you get a real nice tight corner there. Now these I am going to glue in. Mainly because I can get the glue on them without it going anywhere. Now Stephen, if you'd grab that side. Again, we want to go to the inside.
Okay.
Now, these have little places where a screw can go in there. But we're going to go ahead and pin nail them anyway and fill that up later. Got it?
Yep.
With that, we've created our wood screen door. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Not bad. Well, there's no screen yet.
Oh, okay.
And you know why there's no screen?
Well, we got to paint it.
No.
Why?
You haven't sanded this yet.
Well, that's part of the
This is where I get to go sit back there in the chair and you get to start working.
Oh, okay. Well, here, let's put it back down.
We've got a little bit of difference in height in some of our joints where this came together, as well as where our moldings went around the panels here. So all this needs to be surface sanded and all blended together, and then it'll be ready for primer.
Yes.
The screen wire that we're going to use is a basic aluminum screen cloth. I wanted to go with metal because that's very pet resistant, and we do have a few cats in this home. Now the screen wire, the edge of the door here, we want to make sure that the screen wire overlaps that about 1/2 of an inch. And it's going to sit right on there. And then with a staple gun, what we're going to do is come back in here and shoot galvanized staples around the perimeter of this to anchor it into place. And after the staples are put in, this is a piece of screen mold which is 1/4 inch by 3/4 inch, and we painted this ahead of time. That's going to go right on top of the edge of this, even with the inside of the door, and can be nailed in place just with some small tack nails. You don't want to use any adhesive on this because should the screen ever get torn, you do want to be able to remove this, pull out the staples, and re-screen it. Worked out real well. Well, that's how you build a wood screen door here on HomeFix. Thing's going to last a long time. Total materials on this project, we had about $120. Of course, that doesn't include the tools, but that is the paint, the wood, the screen, and all the hardware necessary to construct this door. With the dry time and all of that, it would take you a good weekend, 2 solid days, but there is some downtime in between there. Stan couldn't be with us here to wrap up the show, but I wanted to thank him for his efforts here on the program, and he did a nice job getting this door finished and ready to go. I'm Joe Prin. Thanks for being with us here on HomeFix. We'll see you next time. That thing is plugged off because this little thing spins at 10,000 RPM.
Plugged off?
Unplugged. Start over.
Well, I thought it was a good line. I thought it was a good line. Look at this. You broke my pencil. This is why I never have them. Use it as do it by as you. Okay. One of the ways you can do it.
Now we know why Stan doesn't talk a whole lot on the HomeFix show.
HomeFix is made possible on public television by True Value Hardware, with tools, paint, electrical, plumbing, and hardware to quickly complete your project start to finish. At your local True Value Hardware, help is just around the corner.
To purchase a videotape of this program, please contact Idaho Public Television at 1-800-543-6868.